Probably the most important topic within scaling sales is, as a CEO, how to be a go-to-market focused CEO. The number one thing that I beat the drum on with my portfolio companies, with any company that I advise, with any friend who will make the mistake of asking me what I think, is that it's all about qualified pipeline. And what I mean by this is, I often see entrepreneurs, either at the pitch stage or in the operating stage, where they look at their pipeline as this metric of progress they're making, and it's very important. But they'll get very excited about deals that aren't qualified. They're at the introduction stage, or somebody's expressed interest, and they're leads. And that's great. That's really important. You want to be prospecting, you want to be generating leads. But at the end of the day, all that matters is qualified pipeline. And what I mean by that is, ultimately, a lead is just someone who has expressed interest in your product. From a sales perspective, these are worth zero, right? You don't get points for these. They're super important, but you can't forecast on them. You can't predict anything on them. And so I like to keep them out of the pipeline analysis. What matters, what drives everything in sales, is qualified leads. And this is someone who is ready to buy. This is a customer who not only expresses interest, but turns out they either have budget already for something that you're selling, or they can get budget for what you're selling, or the price that you are going to charge does not scare them away. They actually have the need, and it's a high priority need for what you're going to solve. There's some degree of organizational support for buying something to solve this pain, or there can very easily be organizational support, and their timeline in their heads is reasonable. If you can solve their problem, they're looking to solve it inside of the next 12 months, at most maybe 18 months. And these are hard and fast answers and questions that you can walk into your, if you're a sales rep, you can walk into your sales manager and say, yes, they're qualified because I know the answers to all of these, and they're crystal clear. It's very easy to get very focused on how much did you close? What was last quarter? What was this quarter, or this week, or last week, or next month, or whatever? That's really important. That's how your VCs are going to measure you, right? That's how your bottom line is going to materialize. But it's very hard to manage sales and scale sales when you're just focused on outcome. The way that really great sales managers and sales leaders manage their team is actually through activity and process. And so what I mean by this, there's a lot to this, but to me, the most important part is having discipline around a sales process. If you don't have rigor and discipline around this process, your teams can spend and waste a lot of time, because as you go down this pipeline, obviously sales probability goes up the further out you are. It's great, you can use it for forecasting, but also the amount of time your reps are spending and the amount of money they're spending goes up. I don't know what your prices are. I have no idea, but I'm going to tell you they're too low. You got to raise your prices. And so this is probably the mark of once you've achieved that go-to-market CEO nirvana state, this is how you've gotten there, because you're raising your prices every chance you get. And so this is a price sensitivity graph. There's a lot on here, but basically the things that are going up and to the right are things that are too expensive, and things that are going from the top to the bottom are things that are too cheap. There are 2 points here. One, software is incredibly expensive to build, which is why you have venture capitalists, right? Because it was so expensive to build this. Your customers don't have the resources to build the software you're selling to them. And if your software is any good and provides any value, you should be charging an extortionary price for it. Conversely, the thing that most entrepreneurs don't understand is that there is such thing as being too cheap. And so if you walk into a large enterprise like Verizon and you sell them a $50K transaction, they are not going to buy from you. They're going to think that your technology is not trustworthy because you're too cheap. So it's a really common question, which is, hey, I've just sold a few contracts. I've got all these customers. I need customer success. And my question is always back to people is like, well, what do you hope to achieve with customer success? And then I ultimately hear basically a unicorn function. I want somebody who is going to help expand the account. I want someone who's going to keep the customer happy. And I want someone who's going to work with product management to receive the feedback from the customers and help iterate the product. That person doesn't exist. What is probably more realistic is your customer success there to drive account expansion and drive more spend? Or are they there to provide better product experience, deployment support, and technical support? When it comes to account expansion, I don't like using customer success for that because that's ultimately a sales function. And most customer success people who are qualified to do that are actually failed, washed out salespeople. So why are you giving one of your most critical functions to somebody who is not very good at it? If they were better, they'd be making a lot more money in enterprise sales. And so I like giving that responsibility to the field sales teams. The answer is automation. It's just more automation of the parts of this process that you can automate. For example, I come from the developer, my last company is in the developer product space. So very bottoms up, kind of like Twilio and Heroku and things like that. In that world, what we ultimately automated was the first four buckets in this process. It was self-service. Developer would come in on their own, sign up, read the documentation to validate that is what they wanted, and then they would start to play with it and do a self-service POC. And for the very, very small accounts, they would just transact with a credit card. Now, the bulk of our revenue came from people stepping out of this automated process after a self-service POC and calling us to negotiate pricing. And for customer success, same thing. There's actually a lot happening right now in customer success around automating it. Really good documentation, really good self-service flows.